Hello, everybody. Welcome to the prophetic meaning of the Hebrew month. We're so excited to be on with you tonight. Let me see if I can get there. All right, I need to get my PowerPoint up together. Hey, Deborah, the conference was awesome. I'm sorry you wasn't able to be here. I know it would have been a blessing to you. All right. All right, please write your name in the chat box and let us know who you are and where you're from. If you're okay with that, it's not really a requirement. It's just I just like to know who's watching and who's on. Hey, Pastor Keithan, good seeing you, man. Good seeing you. All right. Good evening, Monique. Thank you for joining us. All right, everyone. We're gonna I'm not gonna wait too long tonight. I'll wait maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna get started with our presentation for tonight. I pray that you're doing well. Matter of fact, we're just gonna go ahead and enter into prayer. And so, Father, we just thank you for this time, and we just bless your name and honor you, and thank you for bringing us together tonight. We thank you for this incredible season that we have entered, this incredible season that we are in. And we just, we give you all glory. So, Father, meet us tonight. Enlarge our understanding to know what you're saying to us, what you are showing us. Give us revelation tonight. Give us wisdom tonight. And as we are moving through the years, we're moving through the months, as we are moving, pray that, Holy Spirit, that we move in synergy and in agreement with you. In Yeshua's name, amen. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our PowerPoint, and we would love your comments and your questions. And as we are presenting tonight on the Hebrew month, Nisan, anytime that you have a comment or you have a question, you can write it in the chat box, and we will we'll try to answer it as soon as we can. Also, we have our Cash App link there. We tried to do our PayPal. PayPal has sort of changed some of our settings and configurations, so we wasn't able to do that. Hey, Latoria, good seeing you tonight. So if you want to give tonight, you can give to our Cash App, okay? So we're in a brand new month, and we're in a new year, and I know that sounds that can be confusing if you're not understanding the Hebrew calendar and how it operates. But the calendar, actually, in the Hebrew calendar, there are 2 new years. There's actually more than 2 new years, but the two major new years are the spiritual new year, which occurs in Nisan, which is now the month of Nisan. We entered into Nisan in I think it was on Wednesday. And so then we have what's called the civil new year, which is during Rosh Hashanah, and that's in the fall. That's the 7th month. And so Rosh Hashanah, we have it's called the head of the year, and Rosh Hashanah, we get the numbered year. Okay, so just like this is the This is the Hebrew year 5783. It will become 5784 during Rosh Hashanah. But in Nisan, which is the spiritual new year, we have the months. And so we actually start the new year by the first month, which is Nisan, okay? And so that's why there's two New Years now. On our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, we just have the one day, which is January the 1st. So we have that one day, and then we keep it moving, okay? So now that we are now again in the month of Nisan, which was 12 months ago. And one of the things I'm going to try to do this week is we're going to try to get these teachings more organized. We're not as organized as we would like to be. So we're going to try to get these teachings organized so you can go to a list and you can see the months. I'm not even sure how long I've been doing these teachings on the prophetic meaning of the month, but it's a blessing to me. I pray it is a blessing to you, and it causes you to, kind of get an understanding of the seasons, what God is doing in the seasons, and how God is moving in our lives from season to season or from month to month. Every month is really considered a season. And so often when we think of season, especially when people talk about, spiritual seasons, they talk about coming into a new season, or I'm coming out of a season. And many times people don't even have an understanding of how we enter into seasons, how we, focus in seasons, how we live in seasons, and then how we come to the end of a season. But if you understand the Hebrew calendar, then you will understand that every month is a season, okay? And every month carries with it a particular, it has a particular purpose, okay? That season has a particular purpose. It's doing something in us and all of that, okay? All right, so we're looking, I'm writing one more thing, y'all kind of bear with me, but I wanted to share with y'all the Writers Boot Camp that we'll be hosting. It's going to actually start on Saturday. It's our 21-day Writers Boot Camp, and we're going to be working with a group of writers in helping them write their books. I'm going to be their coach, and I'm going to be working with a group of writers. And so if you are currently wanting to write a book and you want to work with a writing coach, and you want to work with the community, and you get that kind of encouragement, then go to that landing page that we just put in place and check it out, okay? We're also offering payment plans. However, you've got to make your first payment this week if you're going to join, because we got to have the first payment before we can accept you in the boot camp, okay? All right, so let's get into it tonight. Prophetic meaning of the Hebrew month Nisan, all right? And we're going to start in Exodus chapter 12, verse 2. Exodus chapter 12, verse 2, where it says, this is God, because God was the one that changed the calendar. Now, what calendar did Israel follow before God changed the calendar? Probably the Egyptian calendar, because they had been living in Egypt as slaves for 400 years. So whatever calendar, Egypt followed, that was probably their calendar. But on the day of their deliverance, on the day that they were delivered, God says this month, and the month he was referring to was the month Nisan. This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Okay. So one of the reasons why we follow the Hebrew calendar, not that we are Hebrews, even though we are Hebrews in the spirit, we are Hebrews prophetically. Abraham is our spiritual father, and he is the first person in the Bible to be called a Hebrew. That word Hebrew means to cross over, to pass over, and to successfully make transitions. So because Abraham is our spiritual father, he is also the spiritual father of Jesus. And so Abraham, as a Hebrew, we are Hebrews in the spirit. I don't agree with this, and it's getting very popular among many Black people to believe that we are Hebrews racially. No, we're not racial Hebrews. We are spiritual Hebrews, and we are prophetic Hebrews. So the Hebrew alphabet speaks to us it speaks to us what God is saying. The Hebrew culture, most of the Hebrew culture speaks to us in a prophetic sense, okay? So the Hebrew language, the Hebrew culture, the Hebrew principles is all very important, because also from the Hebrew culture, we have the word of God, right? And so this is why the Hebrew calendar and the Hebrew alphabet is so important to us, because God established it. And even though he established it for the Jewish people, by faith, it is for all of us. Okay. So one of the things you can do, and if you live by the calendar, like if you pay attention to the days, the weeks, and the months of the Hebrew calendar, it will create in you a discerning and an understanding of how God moves in your life. All right. So this is the first month of the year, and this is the beginning. All right. So whenever we enter into a new year, okay, whenever we enter into a new year, we are entering into a new beginning. And our walk as believers is a series of new beginnings, okay? Our new beginning started when we were saved. New beginning started, and then it continued whenever we've had an encounter with God or something specific takes place. Hey, hello, Raven. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. So this is a significant month because it represents the exodus of Israel from Egypt. Okay. That's significant, because also we are a people of Exodus. That word Exodus means to leave or to depart. And so again, in a spiritual sense, we are always going through an exodus out of Egypt or out of the world. Egypt represents the world. Exodus means leaving. All right. All right. This month is also significant because it is the beginning of the new year, as we've already said. And it is called the first month because it is counted first on the calendar. Now, the concept of first is very important in the sense of being an apostolic people. And when I use the term apostolic, I'm not talking about any denominations. I'm not talking about any churches, any church movement. Jesus Christ came as the apostle, and he brought to us the apostolic. So because we are a kingdom people, we are an apostolic people. And so that means that there are first in our lives. I want you to think about this week how you are first. Okay, you may be first in your family. You may have been the first person to go to college. You may have been the first person to finish college, the first person saved. I was teaching in a conference last week, and I was sharing how I was the first in my family to start tithing. That's apostolic. I was also the first in my family to write and publish a book. Okay, that's apostolic. Okay, and so when you're an apostolic, look at the first. Usually there is a movement in your life that causes you to be the first to leave home, the first to go to another, to settle in another area, the first to accomplish something. All right. And so first is very important, because what it denotes is that we are moving in response to what God is doing. Abraham is apostolic in that he left home and he left his way of life. He left his family, he left his country. All right. And so when you are first, there usually means you're leaving something and you're entering into something. Sometimes first does not just mean leaving, but it can also mean to enter in. All right. All right. So Nisan is the first month because it is counted first on the calendar. And then in the Torah, each month is called by its number instead of its name. So also the Hebrew alphabet is also, it's not just letters, it is also numbers. So one of the reasons, if you are a person who sees numbers, okay, that's a prophetic gift. And you have to come to understand, I'm really trying to get organized where I can start teaching this on a more consistent basis and start gathering people, because the numbers is a part of the Hebrew culture or the prophetic culture. God speaks through numbers. So what we're going to do tonight is when we get to the Nisan and we look at the letters in the name, we're going to also look at the numbers. So we're going to do more of that, because I want you to know what those numbers mean that you're seeing. Every number that you're seeing is not a message, okay? But there are certain numbers that should be standing out to you, and the Lord is speaking to you, okay? All right. So the word Nisan, it means flower. Okay. If you have time, go to the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 12. All right. So Nisan means flower. Nisan also is the beginning. Nisan is the first month of the spring season. So just as I earlier said, every month is a season. Well, then every month also corresponds with a season. So Nisan is linked to spring. And so now that we're in the season of spring, and in the season of spring, we are spring represents resurrection. It represents renewal. Okay. Spring represents it represents an opening up. There's an adjustment in time, which we just went through a couple of weeks ago. All right. So Nisan, and it also means that the flowers are going to start to bloom. So we're seeing a lot of pollen here in Georgia because of the blooming flowers. But flowers also represents life and creativity. Okay. All right. So Latoria, and I'm gonna try what I'm gonna do tonight, and I don't normally do this, but I sort of feel led. So write the numbers that you see on a consistent basis, and I'm gonna try to tell you what that number means. Okay. All right. Now, 11 and 22, 11 is the number of transition, Latoria, and then 22 is the second level, because 11 plus 11 equals 22. And so that means that you're in transition. Now, here's the thing about transition, because sometimes you can stay in transition too long if you don't know where you're going. Usually when transition starts, you probably don't know where you're going, but it means to pass over from one place to another. Now, sometimes when you're seeing the number 11, 22, 33, 44, all of those numbers mean the same thing, Latoria. Okay, so it means that you're in transition. So the first thing you need to determine is, when did you start seeing those numbers? Okay, because that usually means that's where your transition started. After a while, you should know where you're transitioning to. Sometimes the transition is not physical. Sometimes the transition is spiritual. Sometimes it's geographic. So sometimes when you're in transition, that means you're getting ready to move. In 2011, which was 11 transition, there was a series of things that started happening in my life. Very negative, hard things started happening. And the Lord, and he didn't tell me this, but he said, but that was the beginning of me leaving, even though it would be 5 more years. Why 5 years? Because God was giving the church grace. And one of the things that the Lord said is, when I left that church, that he was leaving too. So he kept me there 5 more years, but he kept showing me from 2011 until I left in 16, he kept showing me that I was in a transition. But it was not just about me, it was really about the church, okay? All right, so the number 818 is kind of hard, because eight is new beginnings, right? But when you see a number of 3 digits and they're not the same, you have to go to the scriptures. What I would do, and I'm sorry I don't know your name, you TMC, that looks familiar to me, but I'm not sure who you are. But 818, what you need to do is you need to start looking in the 8th chapter of Genesis. Okay, so let me just, I'm just going to turn there right quick. And when you're seeing numbers that don't fully align, all right, so I may not even finish this teaching tonight, but I want to get through these numbers with y'all, okay? So in Genesis chapter 8, and then the 18th verse, all right, it says, so Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Okay, so that speaks to when the flood was over, when the judgment was over. Okay, so that means that a season had ended. Now, even though the number 8 means new beginnings, in a sense, it was a new beginning for Noah and his family, but it also meant that something had come to an end. Okay, so what I want to encourage you to do is, I want you to look at all of the chapter 8s, even if you have to go all the way to Revelation. Just look at chapter 8, verse 18, and ask the Lord to reveal to you the meaning of that. Okay, but right here in Genesis 8:18, and sometimes I will start in the new covenant. I'll start in the new covenant and not in the old covenant, because we live in the new covenant. So we want to start in Matthew. So then Matthew 8:18, it says, and when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave a command to depart to the other side. So there, the Lord is talking about making a shift. Okay, who did he command? Probably the apostles. Okay, and then And so they were moving, they were leaving. Okay, so 8:18 could be speaking to leaving. Okay, and then when you compare Genesis 8:18 to Matthew 8:18, what's the similarity there? Well, Noah and his children and his family came out of the ark. And then in Matthew 8:18, Jesus tells his disciple to depart to the other side. So both speaks to movement. Okay, so that could mean that you're in a new movement. It could mean that there's a new move. Tiffany, okay. So that could mean that you're in a new movement and you're moving into a new place. It could, so when you're seeing a number that doesn't align, like if it had been 888, okay, new beginnings, but 8:18, you have to go to the word and then look at it, okay? Deborah says 11:11 and then 1:11, so that's transition, Deborah, okay? That's transition. Now, 12:21 and 12:12, that's government, okay? Because even when you look at 12:21, if you turn it around, it would be 12:12. So government means that there's an order being established in your life, okay? The government of God, you're being called to government, which is what the apostolic is. Also, it's what the kingdom is, okay? And then the number 11 is transition, all right? So here's the deal. If you've been seeing 11, and like I said, try to discern, when did I start seeing that? Then secondly, you want to ask, you wait for an answer, okay? You wait for an answer. Why am I seeing this? What does it mean? And then once you know what it means, then you start to make an adjustment to move toward it. And when you stop seeing it, see, one of the things that trouble me is when people say, I've been seeing this number for years, that means that you're disobedient. And it means either you're disobedient or you're without understanding. Because when I see numbers and I start keying in on the numbers, and most of the numbers I know what they mean. So I don't get new numbers. I usually get 777 or 777. Sometimes I might get 8, sometimes I might get 11, or several times 1111. And so since I know what the number means, then I start to ask the Holy Spirit, what does this mean? And what adjustments do I need to make? What adjustments do I need to make? All right. Brother Keithan, the number 15 and 5 is grace, where you are, you operate in grace. You are an apostle. Okay. So 15 is 3 levels of grace. It means abundant grace or more grace. All right. And so that number 5 may be identifying who you are, or bringing you into a place of knowing who you are. Or there may be something specific that the Lord wants you to do in your gift. Okay. All right, y'all. All right. Thank y'all for sharing all of that with us. So Nisan is foundational. We're back to the screen. Nisan is foundational because it is the first month. It is the starting point for the cycle of the year. So now we are continuing a new cycle. Now, the difference between the Hebrew calendar and our calendar is linear. So linear means it's on a line. All right. So today is March 26th. Tomorrow is March 27th. So we are on a line until we get to December the 31st. And then once we reach the end of the line, then the next day we continue a new line. But the Hebrew calendar is circular, or cycles. So it continues. There's no ending. There is an ending, but usually the ending goes into another cycle. So we're on a circle, and this calendar is circular. Okay, this calendar is, you're welcome, Latoria. And so we are moving in circles. And that's really what the prophetic is. We're moving in circles. Beginning becomes the endings. Endings become the beginnings. We're moving in fullness. We're moving at a starting point, but then we're going to not really an end point, because there's really no end in circles. Okay. All right. So each month reveals a prophetic truth. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why we do these prophetic teachings every month, because we're looking for a prophetic truth. We're looking for the truth of God in every month. All right. So then Psalms 104, verse 19, it says, he appointed the moon for seasons. And so this is why the moon actually signifies the season. So the seasons change, the months change by the moon. The year changes by the sun. The sun is the greater light. The moon is the lesser light. Okay. And so he appointed the moon for seasons. So every month on the Hebrew calendar, the season starts with the moon. Okay. Moon also represents the church. Okay. In Genesis chapter 1, when God created the sun and the moon, he called the sun the greater light, because the sun represents Jesus. Okay. And then he calls the moon the lesser light. The moon rules the night, the sun rules the day. Okay. And so the moon is a prophetic picture of the church, because the church rules over darkness. All right. Greatness gives us the number 12. And again, 12 is the number for government. So that could mean that there is when you're seeing the number 12, it could mean that there is a governmental call on your life. Okay. Or you may have a call, and I'm not saying that you actually do, but there may be a call to one of the grace gifts. It also means that you are in the government. Okay. It can also mean that you're in the government of God, or you are in the kingdom. And so also 12 represents miracles. Jesus raised the girl who had died at the age of 12, and the woman was healed who had been sick with a blood disease for 12 years. Okay. And so it could represent miracles. So once we get an understanding of what the number is, then we still have to go deeper in understanding, what does this number mean to me? All right. So thank you for sharing that. All right. All right. So here we have the 4 letters that creates the word Nisan. Okay. So Nisan is spelled from the Hebrew letter Nun, the Hebrew letter Yod, the Hebrew letter Charmek, and the Hebrew letter Vav. Okay. And what I do every month is we look at the Hebrew letters that spell the name to get an understanding of what this month means, what this season means. Now, what I'm hoping you will gain, and so you may need to come back to this particular teaching, this video. So you should save this video, and you may have to come back to it to get an understanding of what should I be doing this month. So when I look at the month Nisan, I know it's a month of sowing. It's a month of planting. All right. So that means that I'm going to be sowing in the fields. Okay. And the fields represent my work. It represents my business. It represents my ministry. It represents the people who I'm called to. Okay. Teaching you okay, coming to YouTube to teach. This is how I sow. So I'm sowing. My YouTube channel is my field, okay? And so I'm going to be planning this month. I'm coming back on next Sunday, and I'm going to be doing a teaching on why the church replaced Passover with Easter. And I'm going to show you, and this is not it's not a condemnation of Easter, but I'm going to show what many of us know is that Easter is a pagan holiday, but it was invented to remove Passover from the church, because there was a movement in the church to remove all Jews from the church. One of the reasons why there's such a separation between Jews and the Gentiles is because in the 3rd or 4th century, there was a movement in the church to get all of the Jews out and to make the church Gentile only. And so one of the things that they did is they removed the feast. Now, again, we're not obligated to follow the feast like Israel was commanded. Israel had to follow the feast, or they would come under the judgment of God for breaking the law. But the feasts are also prophetic, they carry prophetic meanings to us relating to Jesus. Okay, so one of the reasons why we should live by the Hebrew calendar is because Jesus did it. And Jesus brought to us the new covenant. And that meant that everything that Jesus did in the new covenant, we're to also do. Okay, so Jesus kept the Passover. And for the first 300 to 400 years of the church, they kept the Passover, Jew and Gentile. There was no such thing as Easter. And so I'm going to be teaching next Sunday at 7:30. I've been wanting to do a teaching for some years now. Easter always comes up on us because I don't follow Easter. I don't celebrate it. Since I left the church that I was pastoring, it's now been 7 years. I have not observed Easter, but I recognize it, and I'm not hostile to Easter. So you celebrate Easter all you want. It doesn't mean that you're going to hell. I lost one of my best mentees. She was one of the most faithful mentees that I had, but she thought that I was keeping Easter because I was having worship on the Sunday of Easter. And I was trying to explain to her like it was still just Sunday for us. It wasn't Easter, but she refused to meet. And she got so hostile to me, then that ended our relationship. But we'll be back next Sunday. So this is how I sow. So Nisan is a month of sowing. So you want to look at, where to sow. And when I talk about sowing, I'm not just talking about giving. Giving is kind of easy, okay? And giving does not always guarantee that you're going to reap, okay? But there are others. Every one of you should sow the word. You should sow your gift. You should sow time, okay? And you should sow into people, okay? You should sow into people. All right. So then we see the Hebrew letter Yod. We're going to talk about that. The Hebrew letter Charmek, and then the Hebrew letter Vav. Okay. All right. So Nun is the first letter in this in the word Nisan. Nun is the 14th letter, and it has the numeric value of 50. Okay. So if you are 50 years old, this is your personal letter. Okay. If you're between 50 and 60 years of age, Nun is your personal letter. Okay. Now what does Nun mean? Because it's the 14th letter, which means it is the second letter of 7. And the number 7 is perfection, completion, but it also means cycles. And the number 7 means seasons. Okay. But the number 50 represents freedom and fullness. Okay, so if you don't mind telling your age, just go ahead and write in the chat box that I'm 50, or write your age. I'm 56. Okay, some of y'all celebrated my birthday with me by giving me a gift or getting one of my free books, and I appreciate that. But I turned 56 in February, so I've been in the 50s now for 6 years. So one of the things that I try to do, and Nisan is a reminder, is that every year, okay, I should be living in freedom and I should be living in fullness. Okay. So it was almost divinely orchestrated when I left my church, when I left pastoring, when I left full-time ministry at the age of 49. Because I was coming to an ending, and then the next year, 50, was my first year of freedom, because I had come out of religion, I had come out of bondage, I had come out of a denomination, and so 50. But I want to tell y'all, 50 was one of my harder years. So sometimes, even though there's a prophetic meaning, you might not literally see the prophetic, but nevertheless, at the age of 50, because I knew 50 meant freedom and fullness, that's what I was fighting for. I went through a lot of warfare in my 50th year because yeah, well, you gonna get there, Londa. 40 years old. Well, I can't even remember what I was doing when I was 40. That's great. That's great. But I was in a lot of warfare because a lot of the people in the church that I had left was speaking curses against me. And the enemy was taking their words and was using them as darts against me. All right. And so then my brother died, which was pretty tragic because he was my only full brother. Now I have half brothers, but he was my only full brother, and he died at the age of 51. And so we had just gotten close over the last year because he had committed his life to the Lord, and then one day he went to the store and had a heart attack and died. So the year 50 was a very hard year, personally, relationally. But what kept me in the midst of that was the ministry that I had started when I moved to South Carolina. And so that was my freedom, because I was actually doing ministry, and I was doing ministry, and I was doing it the way that I should have always been doing it. And I was free, and I was dealing with people who were coming to connect with me. They wasn't just joining a church, and so I really found my freedom in the ministry, okay, that God had sent me to South Carolina to start. So at 50, you're supposed to be walking in freedom, and you're supposed to be walking in fullness. Now, freedom is the state of being out of slavery or being from slavery. Okay, so freedom is the exact opposite of slavery. Now, I don't want to offend any of our anyone who's watching who's Black, because I know that we come from a heritage of slavery, but then many of us are in different types of slavery. We may not be a legal slave, but we may be a slave to a job, or we may be a slave to a relationship. Many of us at the age of 50, we are slaves to finances. We become slaves. Everything that we do is predicated upon how much money we're going to receive. Now, it's important that we make money, and I'm all for making money. But when you become a slave to money, it actually takes your freedom. And so we are called to freedom. Now, some of the things that we should be walking in is we should be walking in revelation, because revelation comes to those who are free. All right, we should be speaking freely because we're in the pay decade. We're in the decade of the mouth, but we can't always speak freely in society. Okay, but you should have a place where you can speak freely and honestly. All right, freedom also means to be in agreement. And of course, our agreement is first with the Lord, but then you should be looking in your relationships. Okay, you should be looking in your relationship. Are you free in your relationships? For many of us, our bondage is discovered. All right, we're in our 50s and we're in a marriage that represents bondage, or we're in a relationship that represents bondage, or we are working a job and so you want to, freedom means to be in agreement. Okay, that means that you are aligned with people who have your same beliefs, your same values, and even if they don't, they at least have respect for you. All right, freedom. Okay, so the letter Nun represents freedom. It also represents fullness. Fullness means to be fully produced, to have abundance, to have wisdom, to overflow from the heart, to be connected to the Father, and to have revelation. Okay, so one of the things I want to, because I believe this is the month, because we are continuing in the year 5783, and I'm going to do another teaching on the prophetic dream that I had where the Lord showed me desolation, because many of us are dealing with desolation right now. All right, but in the midst of desolation, we can find prosperity if we just hear God. That's all we got to do. So I'm gonna do a teaching next month on how to hear God when you're in the midst of struggle or you're in desolation, because if you live in the United States, if there's anyone else who lives outside of the United States, please write that down. But I think most of us who are here, we're living in the United States, and there is a desolation taking over financially, spiritually, politically. There is a desolation that's taken over. That word desolation means poverty, impoverish. Okay, it means to be without, it lack. Okay, to be empty. And so because of the policies of the political structure, our country has entered into desolation. But the Lord told me in a dream that if my people will obey my voice, they will see prosperity. Okay, so sometimes, and this is why the prophetic is so important, because sometimes, no matter what's happening in the world, if you're seeing God and hearing God and responding to the Lord, you can have a totally different experience. And one of the prophets that I've been following recently, a Nigerian prophet, I can't think of his name right now, but the Lord has been speaking to him about years of plenty and years of lack. But the Lord has been also talking to him about a land called Goshen, and how the people of God, the Lord is raising up his people to create a place called Goshen. Now, Goshen was the land that Israel lived in while they were slaves. So when plagues started coming upon Egypt, no plague came on Goshen, because that's where God's people is. So no matter what is happening in the land, no matter what's happening in the United States, and we're seeing, not only are we seeing desolation, but we're seeing the decline of our nation because other nations are coming together and they're creating covenants and alliances that's actually going to work against us. But as the people of God, we don't have to go through that. Okay. All right. So we have Nisan. Okay. We have Nisan. And then we have the letter Yod. And the letter Yod is the 10th letter. It has a numeric value of 10. Yes, Tony Aromi, you know him. Wendy knows exactly who I was talking about. Okay, great prophet of God. I want to encourage all of you to follow him because the Lord is giving him some of the most specific words that I've heard from a prophet in our time. Okay, most of the prophets are missing it because they're being overtaken by the spirit of politics. But Prophet Tommy the Lord is speaking to him greatly. All right. So here we have the letter Yod. Yod is the most frequent letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it is the smallest letter, but it is considered the atom of the Hebrew alphabet. And the atom is actually that it's that, wow, I forgot to write the definition now, I can't say, but an atom is actually the power. It's the spark. It's the smallest, but it is the most powerful, okay? And so the Yod represents energy. It also represents the omnipresence of God. So one of the things we want to connect with in this month is we want to connect with the presence of God, the omnipresence of God, but also the manifest presence of God. The omnipresence of God is everywhere, and that's the truth. God is everywhere. There's no place in his creation where he is not, but we do not always experience him. We don't always experience it, especially if we're moving in unbelief, or we are moving in sin, or we're moving in doubt. We may not experience his presence, but the manifest presence of the Lord is when we experience his presence. I was in a conference the last 3 days, and the worship was so powerful that God, I experienced the presence of God in the worship. Okay, Yod is a part of every Hebrew letter, so it's sort of like the building block of the Hebrew letters. Okay, it is considered the presence of the Lord in everything that is created. Okay, now Hebrews 1:3 says Yeshua upholds everything in creation by the power of his word, or he upholds everything by the Yod. The Yod is the power, okay? The Yod is the power. It is the spark. Yod also represents creativity, and it represents creative life, all right? So one of the areas that we want to consider is we want to consider the presence of God. We want to consider the energy of God or life, and we want to consider the creativity of God. All right. All right. The next letter is the Charmek, which looks like a shield. It is the 15th letter, and it has a numeric value of 60. Anybody in the group 60? Okay. I may be the oldest person here, and I've got 4 years to get to 60, but the Charmek looks like a shield, and it actually represents the shield of faith. Okay, now this is a month, Nisan is a month of war. Okay, so one of the things that we will experience is warfare, spiritual warfare. This month represents war for kings. All right, so if you are a king is one who possesses wisdom, one who has the heart of God. David was a man after God's own heart. That's why God chose him to be king. And then also a king is one who is a good steward of his possessions. All right. Now, so whenever you are warring, we all have three enemies. All right, the devil, the world, and the flesh. And we overcome them by the shield of faith. So as long as you are wearing your faith, which is your belief, trust, and confidence in God, you will overcome the devil, the world, and the flesh. We're not always fighting the devil. That's the problem with traditional church, is that the traditional church, it loves talking about the devil. It loves elevating the devil. We pray against the devil. We preach about the devil. We sing about the devil. Okay. And so, but the devil is not our only enemy. Matter of fact, the thing we have to remember is the devil is not a force. The devil is a person. He's one person. Okay. He is one being. He is one spiritual being. He's not a human being. He's a spiritual being, but he does have a kingdom, and his kingdom is composed of demons, but he is one person. And so we have to discern the devil. When I moved to Atlanta 3 years ago on the 20th, March 20th, when I moved to Atlanta, one of the things that I experienced that I had never experienced in my life is I experienced for 2 years no warfare. No warfare from the devil, no warfare from people, no warfare. Okay, and it was incredible. I'm going to write a book about it, but there was a specific reason why I was not experiencing warfare, and then the warfare returned because I started dealing with people again. Okay, and so most of my warfare comes from people. Don't come from the devil. It comes from people that I have to work with, people that I have to live with, people that have to relate to. And most of the time, those are the people that create the warfare for me. Now, it may be different for you. You may be warring against demons. Demons may be warring against you. But the one thing I can say is I have not seen a demonic attack except a few times in my dreams, because I was watching stuff on TV that I shouldn't have been watching, and I didn't set a guard over my mind. And so then demonic nightmares came in my dreams, but I have not had a demonic fight, all right, for the last 3 years I've been in Atlanta. So even now, what I'm warning against, 2 years ago, I had to leave Facebook because I was dealing with political Christians, and they was creating warfare for me. All right. And so when I left Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, then that closed the door to those people. All right. So you have to determine who your enemy is. Who your enemy is. When you're entering into a time of war, is it the devil? Okay, it's not always the devil, but for many of us, every time something happens in terms of war, we blame the devil. It may be the world, all right? It may be the world that you're fighting with, and it may be your humanity, the flesh. You are the flesh. So it may be your humanity, it may be your soul, okay, that's creating the warfare. There's a struggle because your flesh wants to rule and your spirit is trying to rule. Okay. All right. So it's a time of war. The last letter is the letter Vav. The letter Vav is the sixth letter, and it has a numeric value of 6. Okay. Now this letter represents man. Man was created on the 6th day. Man works for 6 days and is supposed to rest on the 7th day. Vav is the connection between heaven and earth, the spiritual and the earthly. Okay. So when Jesus told us to pray, let your will be done in earth as it is in heaven, that is actually the Vav operating. All right. Because we we are heavenly, we are seated in heavenly places, but we live in the earth and we was created from the earth. And so there's a spiritual part to us and there's an earthly part to us, and the Vav connects the two of them and brings them together. All right. So this is a month. This is a month for us to pay attention to ourselves as spiritual and earthly, as being in the heavens and also being in the earth. All right. So it's going to be a great month. I pray that you experience God every day, and that these prophetic meanings are going to help you to live out this season of Nisan. All right. So we're finished, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to our page, and if you want to give tonight, I don't have a link for PayPal, but you can give to Cash App. I'm gonna place it again at the bottom of the box so you can see it, and your giving goes to our ministry, the Renaissance Prophetic Network. All right. So if you want to give, you can give to Cash App there. And we also, if you want to learn more about our 21-day Writers Boot Camp, which is going to start Saturday, April the 1st, I'm going to go ahead and copy that in as well. Do I have any questions from any of you, comments from anyone? One of the things I want us to start sharing, I want you to start sharing the revelation that you're getting from these teachings. There's something that the Lord is speaking to you that you may not have known or may not have heard, or something that the Lord, not so much what I've been teaching you, but what the Lord has been teaching you. So if you can write that in the chat box, and we would love to hear from you. And this is a public stream, so it remains on our YouTube channel after we've completed the teaching. Okay. All right. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes, and as I said, we're going to be back on next Sunday, and we're going to be teaching about Easter and Passover. And one of the things we want to do is we don't want to take you back to Passover. We don't want to put you in the law, as if you were a Jew. But I do want us, one of the things that the Lord is doing is he is restoring to us the things that the enemy took from us, or that man took from us, took from the church. So there are a lot of customs in the church, a lot of traditions that has no place, okay? But they were instituted in the history of the church, and it has remained. So because we are a people of Reformation, and I speak to those who are kingdom and to those that understand that, traditional church doesn't work for me. And because you are a person of Reformation, the Lord is bringing reform in your life. And that reform means that he is shaping your mind and he's shaping your understanding. Okay, so we have Reformation, we have Renaissance, which Renaissance is the breathing of the new, is entering into the new, and such as that. Okay, do I have any questions from any of you? Any comments? All right. Again, the links are there for you to give at Cash App, or to learn more about our 21-day Writers Boot Camp. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to get out of here so I can get ready to go to bed because I've got to hit the job tomorrow. I hope you have a blessed week, whatever you're doing. And listen, you can always connect with us by going to our email. All right. Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. You can always connect with us by writing us at email. You can go to our About page. We've got a new website. We just gotta do some work on it, and we have a lot of things to offer you. Even though we are an apostle and a teacher of the word, we're also a life coach, and we are a publisher. We are a writing coach. So we've got a lot of things that hopefully you'll be a part of. We've got a paper on Substack. If you want to follow us there, you can go to one of our videos. Okay. All right. So God bless you all. Father, we just thank you right now for what our eyes have seen and what has gone forth tonight. And as we enter into this new month, this new season of Nisan, we just pray that you will meet us every day, that we will walk in our purpose and walk in understanding. In Yeshua's name, we do pray.